This is the Sales Babble Podcast, episode 332, Super Simple Follow-Up with Contact Mapping, an interview with Tom Chenault.
Welcome to Sales Babble, the podcast that shares selling secrets for non-sellers. And now your host, Pat Helmers.
Hello, Sales Babblers. This is Pat Helmers, and today our guest is Tom Chenault. He's the inspiration behind contact mapping. Contact mapping is a process, a very simple process for documenting everyone you meet, and where each note contains details about the meeting and an automatic follow-up process to keep people top of mind. Despite the evolution of CRMs, many sellers struggle to take notes. People love to be remembered, and that's the trick to building relationships. So again, what is it that researchers say? That the average seller only follows up twice when in reality they should be following up at least 9 times? In this interview, Tom says, let's get organized and contact map your network. But before we get to the interview, I want to do a shout out to our sponsor, Sharetivity. Helps people's increase process engagement by providing an easy and fast way to personalize their outreach. Make sure and listen all the way to the end for a free download of Sharetivity, one-click personalization. And this interview is sponsored by ContactMapping.com, a simple process for documenting everybody you meet. And so, with no further ado, let's get to it. Welcome, Tom. You ready to babble?
I am ready.
Awesome. I was looking at your LinkedIn profile this morning, and I see that you're in Longmont, Colorado. Beautiful country.
That's exactly right. That's where I live.
About 5 years ago, my wife and I were visiting my son. He was working out of a Girl Scout camp near Estes Park, and we stopped for coffee near Longmont, and it hailed like nothing I'd ever seen in my whole life.
There's nothing like Longmont, man. Right at the base of the Longs Peak, gorgeous place nobody's ever heard of. Boulders one way, Estes Park is the other, and there's Longmont, and it's the greatest secret in America.
It beat up her car. I have never. I swear to you, this hail was the size of literally golf balls. And I golf, so I would know. So
we conjure that up once in a while to keep the tourists out because we don't want the town being too overrun. So we just have these tremendous rights once in a while, which creates huge hailstorms, and that way people don't come back too much. So it's great.
It's totally working because I've not been back since.
Thank you.
It also says in your profile that you're a contact mapper. I don't even know what that is. What's that?
Every human being since 1969 that I have met in conversation, I have contact mapped them, which meant that instead of just saying, hi, nice to meet you, I documented the conversation for follow-up, not even knowing if I was ever going to see him again, because it is astounding how many people come back into my life a decade later and they flip out when I have remembered them and where I met them in the whole shot.
You write down the name of everybody you've ever met,
mm-hmm.
and you're able to do that by the end of the day, be up to date?
Yeah. So I have had many careers, from the restaurant business to airplane sales to being a massive stockbroker, and now I'm something called a network marketer. But the skills were all the same. The person who remembers the most about the person across the table always wins. So I am that quintessential, I know a guy. So anytime anybody needs anything for anything, it's called Better Call Tom Chenault.
You're a guy who knows a guy.
Yeah.
I know a guy who's got a podcast that does that, and that's that same idea. So what's your process? How are you able to collect all this? Because as I said before, how can you do this in a fast, quick manner? I picture as salespeople, we're constantly kind of tied to the CRM, and we're putting a lot of data in. That takes a lot of time.
Most CRMs are useless. You can't. There's so much going on with them because they want to plug in an autoresponder, or they want to scratch your back or something like that. And all we basically want is our Rolodex back. And for those of you that are too young to understand what a Rolodex is, it used to be this great big circular thing that you wrote names and phone numbers and information about people on. And it went by the wayside. And now everybody's attempted to revisit that with more and more tricks and technology. And I was in ACT, I was in Goldmine, I had Excel spreadsheets, I had yellow stickies, I had everything. And finally, these people from this company called contactmapping.com developed an app that is in your phone that lets you do exactly what everybody should do. And that is, I meet you, we're sitting across the table at this coffee shop, I take a picture of you, and then at the end of the conversation, I put in your name and phone number like everybody does, and usually that's it. But with contact mapping, the minute you hit save and think you're going to go about your business, the microphone pops up and said, "Did you take a picture of Patrick?" And I go, "Yeah, I did." You put that picture in and you hit save. And then it says, "What do you know about Patrick?" And the microphone pops up. And all of a sudden I pour in all of your details. And then I hit save and the button says, "When am I going to follow up with Patrick?" And never isn't an option. So I've got to put something in that's going to have me follow up with you. So if there's business to be done, I'm probably going to put either tomorrow to send you a note back saying it was really nice to meet you yesterday, Patrick, or it's going to be a week, or it might be a month. And if it's just a casual deal, I might extend it out 3 months or a year, just because I don't know if I'm going to run into you again. But I certainly want your map with me in case we cross paths. And that's all it is. It's the simplest free tool on the planet for keeping track on those people that you never kept track on before.
Huh.
So Patrick,
I got some questions. Okay.
can I ask you a question?
All right.
2 questions. How old are you?
62.
62 years old. So you've been literally in business for 42 years.
Yes.
Okay. In those 42 years, how rich would you be today if you had kept track like diligently of everybody you've ever met in the unbelievable career you've had?
I've already thought about this, Tom. I so wish I had a collection of everybody I'd ever met and all their information. I mean, I just started a diary. I have a Stoic diary that I started about early last year.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just awesome looking back at that and being able to refresh my memory on things I never had before. If I had everybody I ever met, let's say starting back to college on forward, that would be awesome.
So one of the principals at Contact Mapping is a guy named Dr. Rick Manelius. He got his undergraduate and his master's and his PhD from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT. And he is an incredible human being. And he joined Contact Mapping for 2 reasons. One, he believes it's going to change the world because everybody's trying to steal our data, Facebook, LinkedIn, all those places. And the second is because he went to MIT. He graduated with people right now that are changing the world, but he doesn't have a relationship with them anymore because the one thing that they forgot to teach him at MIT was the power of the personal relationship. And here, after all these years, he realizes it was the most important thing he never learned. Is that cool?
Yeah, that is cool.
So,
now, I have hang on. No. So a couple things that popped up in my mind was, do you collect the email address of these people when you first meet them? Because you said just phone and name.
No, I collect everything. Sometimes I don't get their name. Sometimes I don't get their phone number. Sometimes I don't get their email. Sometimes it's just somebody that I know I like that I'm going to run into someday. And I might describe them as bacon and eggs at Janie's Cafe and snap their picture, put in what I learned about them because it takes up no space.
Mm-hmm.
And then 6 months from now, I say, I ran into you at Janie's and this actually happened to me. And I said, you were smoking a cigar. You were talking to Paul Roberts, the owner, And you had so much energy in that room. I wanted to come across the room and meet you, but I didn't do it that day because I was kind of intimidated by you. But here you are again by yourself. I'd like to know more about you. And today, that guy from Chicago, Illinois, at that coffee shop that day is now a good friend of mine.
He would be. How long you been using this app?
Well, the app's only been around for 2 years, but the application is what has made me so unbelievably successful on a spiritual, emotional, marital, relational, and financial basis for the last 49 years, because I'm 69. I've been actually using contact mapping since I was 20 years old.
Oh, so this is you did like a paper version of this, and this is just this is an app on top of that process.
Oh, I worked at a restaurant where we had 75,000 people a month going through the doors. And I literally kept notes on everybody. So we wrote down everybody. We had a literal Dewey Decimal System back then. And we tracked them all. And when they came back in the door, we reminded them that they were important and remembered. And they just kept coming back. And that's when I learned the power of relationships. And if I have time, I'll tell you one more quick story about that was important.
Go ahead.
Grady Franklin Maples in 1971 walked in the door of this restaurant. I said, Grady, what's going on? He says, I'm coming for breakfast, Tom. I'm buying a ranch. I go, where? He goes, I haven't figured it out yet. I'm meeting the realtor today. Very wealthy guy there in Littleton, Colorado. 15 minutes later, in came another wealthy guy named Dean Wicker. And I'm the manager of the restaurant. I'm on salary. The waiters and the busboys are making more money than me because I got a terrible salary. I'm working 100 hours a week. I'm starving to death. And here comes Dean Wicker. Hi, Dean, what are you doing? Oh, I want to sell my ranch. I go, what? He goes, yeah, I want to sell my ranch. I go, well, go talk to Grady. He's right over there. He goes and sits with Grady. They have breakfast. They walk out arm in arm. The restaurant has been bought and sold, and I was the host, so I didn't even get the 50-cent tip on the table. And I had put that transaction together, hook, line, and sinker. And from that day on, Patrick, I swore that would never happen again. And I've been around for 49 years since then. And I promise you one thing right now. If there is money exchanged and there should be a commission paid, I'm going to be in the middle of it. And I learned it. I learned the guy who knows the most people wins and remembers the most about people wins. And it's been my life. I don't know if you know who Harvey McKay is, Swim with the Sharks. He's a good buddy. He built his success in his envelope company the same way. Bob Bodine, the most powerful guy in the NFL you've never heard of, another good friend of mine, built his life the same way, remembering people powerfully.
This is such an interesting topic because it goes against everything we're taught growing up.
Yeah.
You know, we're taught that what matters is grades, being an expert, having skills, and all that stuff has value. But when you get into the business world, surprisingly, lots of times it's not about being the best or the smartest. It's just the one who's known.
Let me ask you a question, Patrick. Can I?
Yeah.
How long has it been since somebody looked at your report card?
Forever.
Nobody cares.
Graduate school, 19. When I started graduate school in 1980.
Yeah. Yeah. Nobody even likes smart people. We like nice people. We like people. The people we like the most are the ones that remember the most about us. End of story.
Yep.
And we're training it exactly the opposite.
Salespeople don't do this.
No. And that's why they're so frustrated. And that's why with a product that costs less, that's 10 times better, they can't figure out how a guy like me, a train wreck, standing over in the corner with a product more expensive that doesn't do as much, has all the business. Because it's not about the product. It's not about the price. It's about the relationship. But they train you to make it a numbers game and just interview and drop people off like it's going out of style instead of acknowledge. And it's got to be really hard for your listeners. The people sitting next to us over there at that table, to have to look at every human being as a prospect instead of a human being. And it's my premise that if we can look at people less than one dimensionally, and I don't care what it is you're selling, your boss says, once you know that they're not buying, go to the next person. How about you map that person like for real and find out what they're really about? Because you never know when you can come back to them for another transaction, totally unrelated to what you're selling right now. You ask me about anything, I can Google my brain. You ask me about airplanes, I'm going to put airplane in my contact mapping app, and everybody that's ever said that word to me is popping up along with their picture and their story.
That's how the search works?
Yeah, you can Google your brain with contact mapping. It's a free app. It costs nothing. Just download it in the App Store, Android or iPhone, and take it for a test drive and realize that your life has just changed and it's only going to get better. That's that simple. We're changing the world. That's what we're up to.
How interesting. Are you part of these people? You're part owner or something? Or
yeah. Truth of the matter is, I've been doing this for a long, long time, been unbelievably financially successful. My son, Adrian, graduated from Trinity University, summa cum laude in finance, ended up at a huge company, international company, $7 billion company as the CFO, and said that I'm done with this. He was living in Zurich. He decided to go to Y Combinator and figure a way away from it. Went to Y Combinator, looked at that.
Yeah.
They said, have a great idea and have an influencer. So he starts praying. He's one of those praying kids. And in the shower, he said, my gosh, it's dad. I've got to digitize my dad. So he came back. He and this Rick Manelius from MIT put together this company, and the rest is history. So basically, they took the old man and digitized him, which is me. And that's the app. And the application is my entire life, which is teaching people to treat people with dignity and respect and drop them off where they should be versus where our agenda takes us to drop them. So yeah, it's better by a long shot. It's going to reward you so many different ways. Your business is going to be better. You're going to be a better human being. It doesn't just work in business and in sales. It works in all of life. And it's amazing. It's the best thing that will ever happen to anybody listening to this podcast. I promise you that.
Far too often, people are just taking a transactional view on the people that they meet in the world. And it just burns me up.
Yeah. I do these Zooms every day with hundreds of people on them. And I always look at the names on the right-hand side with just the phone numbers. And then I call out those ID numbers and those phone numbers, the area codes. And I say, I am done calling you by your area code or your ID number or your this or your that, because I'm sick and tired of being my invisible myself at Amazon or at eBay or at my company because I'm known by my ID number. We are human beings and we deserve more than that. Let's treat each other like human beings again.
That's the thing. And I see this kind of crap like on LinkedIn all the time too, that I'm a prospect. I'm not a person. And if people just treated everybody in the digital world just like you would if you met somebody at the coffee shop.
Yeah. It's crazy. I look at LinkedIn and I think I'm a big shot on LinkedIn. I'm also the same thing on Facebook. And I look at my inbox all the time. And I respond to the people that want to know about me versus want to sell me something. Every one of them have an autoresponder or a cut and paste garbage deal that immediately tells me I'm a prospect, not somebody they could meet. And it's crazy.
Yep. You got a new book out, right?
Yeah, there's a book out there called The Coffee Shop Interview. And to call it a book is one of the great exaggerations of all. Because basically it's a manifesto that I wrote. And what you don't know about me is I have been sober for 32 years. And I go to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting every day for the last 32 years, which that's a long time between cocktails, Patrick. And every day I go to those meetings, and people say, "Why do you go every day?" And I go, one, I don't want to think I'm as hip, slick, and cool as my paycheck tries to tell me I am. And the second is I want to help the still suffering alcoholic. So every day I'm in a conversation with people that are doing radical self inquiry and then sharing it with other people. They're just basically telling their biggest secrets and sharing it with other people. And then I'm also huge into personal development and really, really big on communication. And third, I'm in business. And as a result, I took those three conversations and merged them into one called this coffee shop interview, where I teach people to be interested, not interesting. And I also teach them that in every human being conversation that you have, whether it be Facebook, whether it be LinkedIn, whether it be anything else, your major job should have those people feeling better about themselves than they did when they got there. And after you get done with those conversations, completely document every conversation so you're ready for follow-up. And that's what I do. And that's what this book called The Coffee Shop Interview does. And so the reason I qualified the word book, because I don't want you guys thinking you're War and Peace. You're going to get a copy of War and Peace, but I would be happy to send the digital copy that went to the top of the Amazon best-selling list to anybody that wants one today for free.
I love it. I love that quote. Be interested, not interesting.
Yeah.
That's the antithesis of what people think selling is.
Yeah. You're supposed to throw up on people. It's insane. That makes no sense. It makes no sense. They don't like being thrown up on, yet they're trained to do just that. They say the most important word in sales is next, because you're supposed to just blow through those prospects like it's going out of style. It's a numbers game. No, it's a people game. And the people that are the most successful are the ones that remember just that.
How can people find you online?
Tom at contactmapping.com. Yeah.
And you're on LinkedIn too, I know, because
Yeah.
I reached out to connect with you today.
Yeah, just Google me. If you'll Google me, you're going to find me literally every place. And where you won't find me is places like scam.com or anything like that. We don't charge for contact mapping. Obviously, it's a community that you can get bigger and bigger and bigger in as your interest and desire increases. But we're here to change the world and get people looking at each other, using their ears instead of their lips, and documenting conversation. Can I talk about follow-up just a tiny bit?
Oh, yeah.
Follow-up's the toughest part. People all think that meeting people is the hardest and finding the leads. That isn't the hardest. The Coffee Shop Interview book is going to teach you that. And then you're going to get to the follow-up side of it, which the app is going to force you to do. And most people are going, well, I don't know what to say on the follow-up. And basically the prompts in the app are going to tell you to follow up, but they're not going to tell you what to say. But by virtue of the fact that you have interviewed these people, you're going to have plenty of things to talk about. Now, how old is your daughter now, Patrick?
My son. It was my son. He's like 30.
What was your son doing at a Girl Scout camp?
Yeah, he was working. Yeah, he was driving tractor. He was like, he works for Boy Scouts of America now, but that's what he's doing there. Yeah.
Okay, so you could tell I listened there because you talked about Girl Scouts, so I automatically assumed.
Yeah, you connected the dots, which was good.
Okay, but it was bad because I should have gone deeper and found out it was your little boy, not your little girl that was at the Girl Scouts.
That's all right.
But the point I make to you is I just went to a follow-up touch right there on something that is the most interesting on the planet to Patrick, not necessarily to Tom, because you don't know whether I'm interested in the Boy Scouts or not, the Girl Scout camp or not, but I'll guarantee you are, because you're the love of your life, the most important thing to you. Your little boy was involved with that. And that's what we all have to remember is what's important to the person across the table, not what your company is telling you to sell them. And you keep selling and speaking into what the prospect across the table is interested in. And sooner or later, those two conversations are going to collide because that person's going to realize you actually care about them and they will want to do a transaction with you. That's the difference.
Wow. You were absolutely spot on right.
It's a magic trick, and we train it. We've got so much training. I mean, it goes so deep because it's so needed and so refreshing. And that Rick Manelius, that kid that I talked about from MIT, he said Salesforce and LinkedIn and Facebook and all these things need interrupted so badly because everything is a trick, and life isn't a trick. It's human beings trying to connect with other human beings. And you didn't learn that in college. And we're coming back and we're basically giving people the opportunity to learn what they should have learned a long time ago. And that is to treat other human beings with love, dignity, and respect to such point that they feel that they can trust us, that they know we love them, and that they belong in our tribe. And I promise all of you salespeople, if people feel loved, if they feel they can trust you, if they feel they're safe with you, and they feel you're in their tribe, they're going to buy from you. I promise you, they're going to buy. And if they're not buying from you, it's because one of those four things are missing.
Wow. Totally agree. This
Crazy.
is bigger than sales, too.
Yeah.
There's tons of professions that could use this. Yeah.
Called your family dynamic. You want to have fun, go interview. Get the free coffee shop interview book and go interview everybody in your family. And you're going to be astounded at what you don't know that you thought you did about their goals, their dreams, their life right now, their health concerns, their financial concerns. People are scared right now. We're in a crazy time with this pandemic. And, this podcast is going to live on forever, and that's going to be in the rearview mirror, but it's here right now. But I'll tell you all one thing right now. If it's not this pandemic, it's going to be something else that's going to have people not feel connected and scared. And the coffee shop interview and contact mapping is what's going to glue this world back together.
Thank you. Tom, this has been awesome having you on Sales Babbling here. I really appreciate it. Thanks for visiting us.
I love you. I listened to you. I told you that earlier. You have got it going here. And if I can ever help any of you in any way, don't hesitate to let me know.
Sales starts with getting your prospect's attention. Given all the noise, you have to be different. You have to personalize your outreach. Unfortunately, it's time-consuming to go to Google, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube to find an icebreaker. It's a conundrum because personalized outreach converts significantly higher than canned emails. Picture the possibility that with one click, you could get a social footprint of your prospect, which would make personalized outreach faster. With Sharetivity, you instantly discover personal information regarding your interests, college, and social media posts on LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. With Sharetivity, you can make each outreach personalized, yet fully automated to fill your pipeline. Sharetivity is a Chrome extension. Search for it in the Chrome Web Store. It only takes 2 minutes to download, and soon you'll be skyrocketing your prospecting productivity today. Sharetivity. One-click personalization. Too often, salespeople take a transactional view on people versus a relationship-building view. Tom authored the book, The Coffee Shop Interview, and it's a manifesto on how to be interested, not interesting. Like he said, sales isn't a numbers game, it's a people's game, and follow-up and being memorable is the hardest part of that. To connect with Tom and to get a free copy of his book, Coffee Shop Interview, you can find links to that and our sponsor, Contact Mapping, in the show notes at www.salesbabble.com. You can also find links for the Chrome plugin for Sharetivity, the prospect engagement tool that provides one-click personalization. If you have any questions or comments, don't hesitate to reach out. And don't forget to attend this Thursday's Babble, where you get a chance to meet all kinds of salespeople and get great advice on how to improve your selling. Again, that's at Thursday at 4 o'clock Central Time, 5 o'clock Eastern, 2 o'clock Pacific Time. Would love to see you there. Hey, did you find value in this episode? If so, make sure and share that with friends. That's how we grow the podcast. That's all I got for this week, folks. Until next week, take care and have a highly successful and a profitable selling day.
Thank you for listening to the Sales Babble podcast. Find us at www.salesbabble.com.
This is a production of Habanero Media.